what I want to talk about is that through doing this, I really discovered my strengths as a person, my unique strengths as a person, and the kind of experiences that I went through that I would have that nobody else has. Thank you, Nahla, for the very eloquent introduction. So, there's a quote that always comes to mind. Try not to be a man of success, but a man of value. So I'm really a person who enjoys quotes, who likes to make sense of them. And this specific quote, for several years, I kept thinking and thinking about it, and I couldn't really tell the difference. All of us, we look at value and we try to succeed to become a valuable person, and it was really difficult to be able to tell the difference. It actually took a knife to my throat to be able to tell the difference. It was 5 p.m., October 30th, 2012, right after the Egyptian revolution. I was working for ExxonMobil, one of the big oil and gas companies. I was doing very well in my career. I just got promoted after very successfully completing a project, and I thought of myself as somewhat a successful person. My boss asked me if I wanted to attend a training in Cairo. I was working in Alexandria. If you're not familiar with the country, these are the two largest cities in Egypt. And my boss asked me to go all the way back to Cairo to attend a training for the business. So I'm driving my car, and suddenly I have a flat tire. Unfortunately, it wasn't a BMW. Maybe if it was, I wouldn't have this story to tell. But I stopped over, and I want to tell you guys who are not familiar with Egypt, I've been to maybe 105 cities around the world, and definitely before the revolution, Cairo has to rank amongst the top 3. So whenever somebody has a flat tire, it's really very common practice for you to stop over and help them out, especially if you don't have a time constraint. So another car stopped right next to mine. The driver came out of the car and asked me, Yaseen, do you need, he didn't know my name, but he said, do you need any help changing the tire? But my car was an old one, and I was very accustomed to it, so I had a special jackhammer that made the process a lot faster. I lifted the car up and removed the old tire and put the new one back on, and I was screwing the bolts back on when this happened. So I told him, actually, I don't need any help. I'm fine, and thank you for stopping. And he came up to me and he told me in a very sincere voice, but Cairo is not as safe as it was, and Egypt is not as safe as it was, and we need to stop and help each other. So I just let him stand there while I completed the tire. I put it back on, and I'm getting ready to leave. And he comes over and says, can you give me some help? And I told him, with what? And he said, no, I mean, I want some money. I was really shocked because he pretended to be this very nice person, and I was very grateful that he was helping me, but in reality, he just wanted some money. So I put my hand in my wallet, in my pocket to get my wallet, and he grabbed my arm and pulled me towards their car. I could not believe this. I have no idea what's going on. And suddenly, the adrenaline just kicks in. And the first thing I could do, I think of, is just punch him in the face as hard as I could. And it's really like a movie moment, because when the adrenaline kicks in, like, your hand is a lot faster than you think it could ever go. And the guy actually falls on the floor, and I'm running towards my car because I seriously sense danger. And what I realized, that there was 4 other people in the car because the glass was tinted and I couldn't see inside of it. And they were standing there between me and my car. 4 people with knives on the middle of the Cairo-Alex Desert Road, which is one of the most heavily congested roads in terms of like intercity railways. And I can really not, I can't even understand what's going on. And I start shouting at them because maybe they're just taking some drugs or something, and this will scare them off. And a 5th guy comes out of the car with a gun. And he points the gun directly at me, maybe 2 meters away. And I'm standing there, and I'm looking at his hand, and it's shaking uncontrollably. The gun looks like it will seriously fire on its own. So I go like this, and I tell them, you can take whatever you want. And they took my car keys, and they started my car, and they drove off. And the other ones, they came to me, and one of them held a knife right here to my throat, and a knife to my side. And their boss was telling them, if this guy tries to act like a hero, you should kill him. And they put me into their car, and they just drove off. And suddenly it hit me, I'm actually being kidnapped. In the city, I thought it was the safest city in the world, and just one of my unlucky stories is slowly becoming a kidnap story. After that, we drove off and they started asking me questions. And surprisingly, I was very, very calm. I was able to answer their questions very slowly, and after thinking about them, they asked me, what do you do for a job? And I told them I work for a food company. I didn't want to tell them I worked for an oil and gas company because maybe they would think I was rich or something and want to steal my money. And after that, they asked me, what does your father do for a living? And this question, the answer blurted out of my mouth without even thinking. And I told them my father is a police general. That's not the truth. My father is not a police general. And I have no idea how this answer came out without me even thinking about it. And I'll get back to this point later. But I was there, and as soon as I said that, they actually pulled over on the side of the road. And I can hear those 3 or 4 guys talking outside, telling each other, this guy's dad's a police general. So we either kill him and take the car, or we leave him and let him take his car. Like, we're not going to take his car when his dad's a general, you know? So I heard that, and hearing the word, we'll kill him, I suddenly started to really panic because I realized this is not one of my unfortunate stories that I'm going to tell people. This actually might be the last story I ever tell or go through. So I started thinking I have to retaliate or I have to do something. And I started threatening them with their lives, telling them, my father is a general. Do you know what that means? In 5 minutes, he'll be able to get each and every one of you from their homes, from your homes, and torture you. And as soon as I said that, they went back into the car, and they started beating me. It was the beating of my life. I got punched, kicked. I got actually a knife to my chin. They were hitting me to a point where I could not feel it anymore. Seriously. It was the worst experience of my life. Especially the guy that I punched in the face at the very beginning. I think he was very angry that this happened to him in front of his partners in crime, is a good way to put it. So after that, they just got bored of hitting me. And I was sitting there thinking I'm really going to die, because if they wanted to take my possessions, they would have just left me in the middle of the road and left. So what's happening right now is that they want to kill me. And a very short 30 seconds of my life that changed the course of my life were happening right there. I started asking myself, was I happy with the life that I was living? Am I actually ready to die? Were there any things in my life that I wish I would have done that I hadn't done? And it was really sad to think about these answers, because each and every one of them was an answer which I did not like. 2 minutes later, by some miracle, they actually let me go. They decided it was safer to let me go than to kill me and take the car. And 2 minutes later, I was a free person. I went back home. I was first shocked, but then I started thinking about those 30 seconds. And I was thinking about those 30 seconds more than the actual situation and everything that happened to me. And I was really upset that I considered myself a successful person, but at the same time, when I was asking myself the most fundamental questions about my own happiness, about whether I was happy with the life I was living, all of my answers were very negative answers. And this is the point which I decided I no longer want to have a corporate career. And no matter how successful someone can become, you can still be very miserable in a very good job, something that maybe you've deemed as your dream job. And there I made the decision that I was going to quit. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. But when I started learning more and more about it, the essence of it for me was being able to solve a certain problem. And as an Egyptian living in Egypt, and I consider myself someone very patriotic, I was sick and tired of seeing Egypt's resources go to waste. And being in the energy sector, the first thing that came to mind is, how is Egypt providing its energy? And the answer was that we're burning all our fossil fuels and becoming a net importer of energy, because we're providing all our power by burning natural gas and diesel. And that's really a terrible utilization of a resource. The analogy is, if you want to get warm, you burn wood, you don't burn fire. Because really, if our natural gas and our fossil fuels were being put into the petrochemical industry or the fertilizer industry, Egypt would be making 3,000% more on its fossil fuels than it's making now. And this can contribute to GDP growth and economic prosperity. So what if me as an individual, I could actually do something about that? And that sparked the idea of being an entrepreneur and starting a business. I was sitting there at the factory in Alexandria with a power cut, and suddenly it hit me, let's use solar energy. Why are we one of the countries with the highest solar irradiance in the world, At the same time, we have a massive energy crisis. And I went to Germany actually and got some technical knowledge. And then we jumped into the market. I took all the money that I made from ExxonMobil. I found a very capable partner who also worked for Shell, which was very convenient because we like to think of ourselves as the Robin Hood of energy, where we took money from the big corporates and we put it into this clean tech, green energy thing. And I sold my old car because I had a very negative experience with it, as I just told you. And I took all that money and put it into the business. And it was extremely difficult to get started. It's not roses and butterflies and making millions, but actually it took us more than a year and a half and 151 failed proposals. Before number 152, probably someone got tired of us nagging or made a mistake or something and said yes to our first proposal. And that was a project at actually the American University in Cairo. And this project was actually very successful, and they told us you have open access to the facility to be able to bring in other clients to take a look and actually do this. And in 2016, this was our turning point. It was our turning point because we pivoted the business in a way where we were able to identify something called the industry constraint. I was reading a book about liquid soap, randomly enough, and the first guy that invented liquid soap was a genius. He realized this is such a useful and convenient product. I'm not going to be able to make money off of it for a long time because so many people are going to copy me. So what he did was he looked at the entire product and realized that the plastic dispensers he was using, only one company around the world was manufacturing them, just one. He went to that company and made a deal with them. For 3 years, he's buying their output. And he started manufacturing in mass. So for 3 years, he was monopolizing the markets, and the guy made tens of millions of dollars and sold the business for a huge figure. You can read the story, it's very interesting. So after I read that, I wanted to apply that to our own business. Solar energy in Egypt costs 1/3 of the energy we buy from the government. 1/3. Why isn't everybody using solar? Why isn't it in every single rooftop on every single home? And the answer was, it's extremely capital intensive. You have to buy 25 years of power today. If the issue is about capital intensiveness, then maybe we should position the company as a solar financing company. Let's make it easier for people to be able to buy solar. Let's step in and say that we'll put in this capital investment and the customer can get it for free and pay for it from their own savings. This is when we really have a product to sell. And that's what we did this year. And what it resulted in is that the company made 35 times the revenue from the year before. We've made over 40 million EGP this year in revenues in our third year. And the company is completely transformed. We're hoping to open another branch in Saudi Arabia, Q2 2017. We teamed up with a commercial bank, and we're disseminating the technology outside our own sector. We're teaming up with commercial banks and residential developers to make solar available in every single home, in every single factory, in every single commercial entity. And this all happened because we did one thing, identifying the industry constraint. What I want to talk about is that through doing this, I really discovered my strengths as a person, my unique strengths as a person, and the kind of experiences that I went through that I would have that nobody else has. And I think when you're passionate enough about something, in terms of solving a certain problem that solves a certain issue, and you think that your unique strength is something that will help you solve this problem, then I really think this boils down to you being able to figure out what your purpose is. And once you figure out your purpose, you're just so incredibly passionate that you become unrealistic. Unrealistic in terms of how hungry you are to make something work. Like, I wrote down one quote. You can see I like quotes a lot, but the quote was, "There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." And every single time we got a no for one of our proposals, I would look at that and I would tell myself, even if it doesn't make any sense, that you walked away from a corporate job that's paying you so much money, and you're doing something that pays you nothing right now, this idea and solving it is going to transform your country. So you need to keep doing this. And this message was strong enough to keep us going at a time where a normal, rational person would just give up and find another corporate job. So this is something extremely powerful, being able to figure out your passion. And what I realized is that this is directly related to your happiness as a person. Because I think as human beings, we're wired in a way where for our happiness to be permanent and not temporary, it has to involve other people. It has to involve empowering others. So you need to be able to figure out your unique strengths and create a life around something where you're allowing others to do the same and you're empowering them, whether directly or by inspiring them to do the same thing, where it just becomes this endless cycle of you being passionate about something and dedicating your entire life to it. It's like finding one thing and letting it consume your life. And it's not consuming in a negative way. It's consuming because you become an incredibly happy person. You can take huge disappointments and setbacks in your stride and always be able to smile because you love getting out of bed. Every single day, it's time to wake up. You cannot wait to get out to the world and change something or do something which gets you closer to your goal. And the thing I told myself and I promised myself is that if for too many days in a row I'm getting out of bed when I don't want to and I'm just waiting for the weekend to arrive, then I'm in the wrong place. And if you're not doing something that you love, you're just wasting your time. No matter what the consequences are, you should really strive to do that. So thank you for not falling asleep and not